Hello, and welcome to Buying and Beyond, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of retail buying. We're Kate and Linz, and together we have over 30 years' experience in retail.
We'll be talking all things retail buying and beyond, so grab your drink of choice and come and have a giggle with us.
Hello, it's episode 3 of season 2.
Hi, Kate.
Hi.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm feeling good actually. I'm really enjoying talking about trips. It's one of my favourite things. I feel like I've not been on a plane for a little while, so I feel like I can actually revel in it rather than feel so exhausted that I'm back and I don't want to talk about a trip for another few months.
I know, isn't it really? It is actually quite funny when you've been stuck in the office for so long. You're like, I need to go on a trip, and then when you get back from a trip, you're like, oh, I cannot go travelling any longer.
Another aeroplane.
I see like five flights, including the internals. Internal flights fill me with fear. I don't know if anybody else feels like that.
Do you know what they do? Although one time I was upgraded to first class.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but on an internal. It was like a 2-hour flight. And I was like, oh, I'm going to first class. I sat upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, on an internal flight, they're so small. It really doesn't make that much of a difference.
Surprise, is it?
But I also remember internal flights where, because sometimes in China, particularly, I remember this, they just suddenly have a random airstrike.
Yeah.
They do sudden random airstrikes, and you're just like, but I need to get to that. And I remember then suddenly we had to change. We had to take trains and taxis.
I would rather take a train. Get me on the train.
No, but it was like 5 different trains to get to this place, and it could have just been one flight.
I know, but I'm always like having battle with my technologist. I'm like, I want to sit on an 8-hour train. We can do some work. We can have a drink. He's like, it's an hour flight, Lindsay. I'm like, yeah, but they just take off like a rocket.
Yeah,
they have different,
and you don't hit
speed
a very good
limits.
height, so you just kind of stay at a level where the turbulence can be really quite
bumpy.
Yeah.
Oh, and the lightning. Anyway, we're going from tangent. So we're back with more about development trips. We're going to be talking about the more personal side of travelling as a buyer: the cultures, the food, the hotels, the planning, the prep, the aftermath. So let's get into it. Overall, it can be an amazing cultural experience, but we definitely need to mention the food, Kate.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like trying the delicacies, like crab season in Nanjing. That was actually one of my favourites. It was amazing. It was around October time, and they are famous for their crabs.
Oh, wow.
And I got taken to this beautiful restaurant and I got to try them, and they were absolutely delicious.
Amazing.
But I mean, on the other side, I do remember one of my buyers saying to me, you have to tell them you're veggie.
Yeah.
Because the last time I was there, I got served an eel.
Oh, God.
And it was like, like fresh eel. So I remember saying that, but then I was served a plate of like wobbly plain tofu, and I remember it coming out. I was like, oh, I'm vegetarian. Eel? No, thank you, not for me.
No eel for me today.
And then I saw this plate coming towards me, and I was like, what is that? It looked like jelly wobbling on the plate. It was tofu.
Oh, God.
So you can have some really like great delicacies and get to try some really fancy things, but then there's some really like bizarre things as well. You have to be careful.
I really love the food part of the trip, and I think there's certain buyers that really, really are not okay with trying the food out there. They're very much like, let's go to KFC and stick to the Western food, which is everybody, different horses for different courses.
Or they just pack a load of like cereal bars in the
which
suitcase
I do
and just stick to those.
Be fair, because sometimes it can get a bit monotonous, the food, but the food is fantastic. It's so good and fresh and beautiful, and like you can just eat plain rice and lovely vegetables, and I love the food. I think it's great. I think you're not ever really going to experience that as a tourist anywhere else.
No, and you're really looked after because you are in a strange place. You don't know anything, and it's not that it's not safe, but it's safer to go with your suppliers. But it can then just be quite intense, can't it? You're spending a lot of time.
Yeah, you're spending a lot of time with your suppliers, which can get a bit overwhelming, can't it? Especially on your first trip. I think on one of my most recent trips, I took my assistant out with me, and I think it's really interesting to see when you've been doing so many. It's really, you kind of forget about your first time, and it really brought it all back to me when she came out with me. And it is such a cultural experience in a good and a bad way for certain people, because the food is so different, and you're not on the tourist trail either. You are in quite industrial places sometimes, and it can take some time to sort of think, to adjust to it, and you are really reliant on your suppliers looking after you as well. So it's kind of can be a bit daunting.
I remember being in a factory and being there around lunchtime, and they were like, "Would you like to join us for lunch?" And I'd been really used to, because it was my first trip, I've been really used to UK suppliers and having lunch and what you might have, sandwiches and some crisps or something.
Breadsticks.
And we all sat down and they just brought out a bowl of rice. And then they just scoop it up.
Yeah.
And it was just a bowl of rice. And I was like, oh, it really quite surprised me. I didn't know. They were like, we could take you out. I was like, no, it's fine. We'll just eat here.
Yeah,
and it was just a bowl of rice. I was like, oh, but hey, I indulged in it. But you also spend a lot of time with your colleagues as well, don't you? I mean, it's a lot of time spent with
sorry for my colleagues.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
But you just you get on with it, and it's another great opportunity for bonding.
I definitely learned a lot about my colleagues from going on trips with them. Because you're in 6-hour car rides, and you're not just always talking about work, obviously. And you learn a lot about people's lives and what they've been through, and their previous experience in other businesses. And some of them haven't been doing this career their whole career; they've been doing other careers, and it's really interesting.
It can be, and you can have
therapy sessions.
Yeah, really good conversations. And I think as a buyer, often if you're taking as a buyer, if you're taking your ABs, or if you're head of buying going on and you're with your buyers, or if you're a director and you've got your heads of, I always think, and maybe it's a very hierarchical view of it, but whoever's kind of the sort of the boss or the leader should be the one to really bring the group together and keep them motivated and keep the spirits going. I remember being on a short trip, actually. It was only a short sort of few-day trip to see a European supplier. And I remember my buying director just ignoring us. And I just thought, I was like, instead of keeping the group together, she just sort of walked off and did her own thing in the airport. And I was like, it's only a couple of days. You just need to pull your big pants on and just...
You're human.
Yeah, and just keep the group together, and there's no need to isolate yourself. And it's exhausting, but lead from the front.
Yeah, exactly.
I think from that, maybe should we just jump straight into some retail therapy? Okay, so the first one is, so I went on my first international trip to Europe with my buyer when I was an AB. I was so excited when I was first told, as it was such a privilege to go at such level. But then I had to plan and organise the entire trip, despite never having been on a trip before. Where do you start? And she'd been quite fussy about insisting that I only book 4-star and above hotels, but they also had to fit within a budget. I mean, talk about your first challenge. And when we first pulled up at our first hotel, there was a rating on the outside and it only had 3 stars on it. And she immediately pointed it out to me. I swear its rating on the booking site was at least 4-star, but maybe they translate differently. God, how awkward. Anyway, she quickly got over it, as it was a lovely hotel, but you can see the sort of buyer I'm dealing with here. When we got to our next hotel the next day, she wanted to go and freshen up before heading to a supplier meeting, but we were earlier than check-in and our room wasn't ready. She was insistent that she needed a room to freshen up.
Wow.
And it needed to be ready and soon. The staff let us know that they only had a double room available at that point, but we could swap into that if we wanted instead of our 2 standard singles, if we really wanted it. I thought, that's fine, we don't need that. And she said, it's fine, we'll take it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I've never felt more awkward in my life than that evening, putting on my PJs, cleaning my teeth and climbing into bed with my boss.
Oh my gosh.
Night, as we both turned over, Cringe. I don't think I slept well at all. I was far too self-conscious of snoring and rolling over, etc.
Can you imagine if you brought that up in your PDR? So I'm scoring you down a point because you kept me awake all night snoring.
And you can imagine this kind of buyer might.
Yeah.
Hold on, there's a little bit more. So to top it off, while we were getting ready for bed, she'd been telling me about how she was going on holiday with her new boyfriend soon and wanted to be bikini ready. And what was the quickest way for her to get a really flat stomach? I'd recently read a lot about planking, so I told her. She then insisted I counted while she planked, but I was mid-cleaning my teeth at this point. So 1, 2, I counted 3 mouthfuls of toothpaste. That's so awkward.
Oh my God. She sounds like an absolute princess, doesn't she?
What an experience for a first trip.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Do you think you were like, do you know what, trips aren't for me?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be travelling.
But also, that's 2 stories we've had now in the last 2 episodes.
Well, but it's about
where everyone's having to stay in the same bed. And all this glamour that's associated with trips.
It's really not. It's really not.
Right, what have you got?
Okay. Let's have a look. So this is a bit of a foodie one. Right. Here we go. We had been working quite late at a factory, and the team/owner really wanted to take us out for dinner, which is common practice as you only see each other once a year. All we really wanted to do was get back to the hotel, have a hot shower and climb into bed. They insisted on taking us to a local restaurant, which I'm usually up for as you don't get to have these experiences many times in life or as a tourist. We turn up to a beautiful, traditional Chinese-looking building and are seated in a private room with a huge circular table and large turntable. I tend to tell my suppliers that I'm veggie, like you said, to avoid receiving anything that I might not quite fancy eating and to avoid any embarrassing situations. This time, I felt it was safe, as it was such a nice restaurant. How wrong I was. Before I knew it, I was staring down the face of this very situation as I was presented with a bowl of raw egg soup and a floating prawn. Yummy!
You think the prawn was cooked?
It must have been. Can you eat raw prawn?
Well, can you eat raw egg?
Well, people eat it, don't they, for protein, or when they're hungover the next day.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh God, crazy people.
I know, but I just think maybe their constitution's a little bit different.
Oh goodness.
I know. I just don't. I know lots of people say when you go on a trip, you mustn't refuse food because it's rude and it's like, from a cultural point of view. But I've just been in certain situations where I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's a 6-hour car ride home. There's absolutely nowhere. I'm eating the raw egg and the floating prawn. Do you know what I mean?
You don't want a bridesmaids moment.
Exactly. In the car with your colleague. I mean, talk about bonding.
It's too much. It's too much.
Far too much. I mean, you do bond, but wow.
It's another level.
I know.
Okay, back to it. I actually think that's a really interesting point about the AB who had to plan the trip.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know when I've had to plan trips previously, I've had to do it myself. Some companies, I think, head of buying sometimes can be involved in planning it.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, a lot of the places you work with an external company, but that can sometimes just be for the booking the flights, not planning the schedule. And the schedule can be the hardest bit, really, can't it? But how do you plan a trip from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really challenging one, especially, like I said before, if you don't have anybody to sort of go and ask. But if you do, I think best thing is to get hold of someone else's itinerary format. From doing it from scratch and see how they've done it.
The previous buyers' trips. Where did they go?
That's probably one of the ways that I mean, it's such a long time ago since I planned my first trip, but I think that's what I did. I did a lot of detective digging around files when I took on a department. There was no one there to give any handover notes to. So yeah, digging out old formats. Also then finding out their old supply base as well. Is there anyone you can contact on there and things like that? And like we said, you're so reliant on your suppliers. If you're planning your first trip to China and you don't have a sourcing office over there or anything like that, I would say don't panic, because they're so used to ferrying you from A to B, and don't be worried about them taking you to another supplier as well. Like, we often have people picking us up from a supplier, and then the next supplier comes and picks us up from the next supplier. It's quite common, quite normal, you know. They wouldn't be embarrassed by it. They all know each other anyway, to be honest with you. So it's just make sure you get a good hotel. Like, it doesn't need to be fancy or anything like that, but just comfortable and clean, and preferably with a gym, because you're so jet lagged. Having a bit of a gym session, even if you just cannot face it, just having 10 minutes on the treadmill is so good for the jet lag. So,
and even some of the just basic bits of like having a hotel that gives you bottled water.
Yeah,
that it's just a sanitary thing. It's just your body isn't used to the water that they may drink, so you always need to have you always need to have boiled water. You always need to have bottled water.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an important thing. So you need to have like a certain level of a hotel that's going to be offering bottled water by your bed. And also I heard, don't eat eggs.
Oh, really?
Because apparently this is, and I don't know if this is a rumour.
Love the omelette station at breakfast.
I'd love for somebody to clear this up for me. But apparently they are often in China genetically modified. They're not real eggs. I
feel like that might be a little bit of a wivey.
Well, they don't have milk, do they?
Interesting.
Not that milk and eggs come from the same place, but just generally, China isn't as au fait with. They're not as much of a country that eats dairy.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing I would say is try and pick a hotel that does have some Western options for food. As much as I absolutely love the food over there, sometimes when you're feeling a bit tired and you want a little bit of like home comforts, you know, you can order a pizza to your room, or, you know, the famous chicken club sandwich that most hotels have, you know, like with chips.
I love the chicken club sandwich, particularly when it comes on one of the silver platters, you know, with the silver lids on it, and they wheel it in, and then it looks really fancy. You open up and it's just got a club sandwich.
So nice, and a knife and fork. I love it. A Diet Coke. Yeah. So, have you got any other top tips for jet lag? It's a difficult one, isn't it? I think it really affects people differently.
I would say top tips for surviving a trip is I think you've said this to me before, pack half of boots.
Yeah.
I'd say take lots of snacks.
Yeah.
And for me it's not because I'm not going to eat the food that's there, but it's just like your body is all over the place, and the times that your body might want to eat might not be the times that is accessible to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you've just got a snack bar or something to keep you going.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
And I think try and get on the time zone as soon as you get on the plane, if you can.
As quickly as you can.
So I think that really helps me when I first get out there. I'm sort of a little bit better than I may have been on, you know, when I've been travelling before. I went on work trips. Like it's really important you try and get on the time zone, and keep yourself awake at night. Like that's where you really bond with your work colleagues, because you both sat in the bar, like keeping each other like literally like
matchsticks.
It's like 7 o'clock at night, and you're like, no, we must stay up till at least 9.
At least 9,
because you know you're like, otherwise I'll go to sleep and I wake up at midnight, and like the chat on the trip is always like, have you slept and have you pooed?
Do you know what? That sounds a bit like having a child.
I know.
That's my basic conversation. Has he napped and how long for, and has he pooed and what was it like?
Not with everybody, I'm sure. Like those boundaries are still there.
But it was, you know, definitely having the snacks. Another reason why I would have a snack is I once got caught in Hong Kong with a typhoon.
Oh,
so I had to cancel.
Yes, I was out there when you were there.
Had to cancel my supplier trip.
Yeah.
My day with them, because no one could get anywhere, and you just had to stay inside. I think it was like a level 8 or something.
Yeah, they're really bad, aren't they? Especially in October.
Inside.
Yeah.
And often your company has a limit on how much you can actually expense for food on the day. So it's not like you can just sit there and eat all day.
No.
I remember, like, I got through all my snacks pretty much, and you end up like I spent the whole day like doing work and things, but I definitely remember the food bit being like, oh god, I'm so glad I brought all these snacks with me.
Yeah, my gosh.
Or if you've planned your trip and then there's a national holiday.
Yeah, I think that's back to the itinerary building, isn't it? Itinerary building, and it's that we just went on a tangent then, which I'm sure
No, but
we've
snacks
done
are
before.
good if you've got a day off and you're on your own and you're industrial China with nothing to do. At least you've got your snacks to eat.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, when you're planning your trip, there's so many things to think about. You've got to think about how long it's going to take you to get to each supplier. Where are they located? Do you need to get an internal flight? How much time are you going to need at the factory? Is the factory at the site? Or is it just the showroom? Because quite often suppliers just have a showroom in a big town, and then the factories are like 3-hour drive away. So there's just so much you need to factor in.
And how important is it for you to see that particular factory on that trip? Like, as we've said, we love going to a factory. We think it's really important to understand it.
Yeah, 100%.
But it can be really, like, your trip would be months and months and months long if you saw every single supplier and every single one of their factories. You have to cherry pick.
Yeah, you do. Or you're going out there with your technologist, you split up. So you do the showroom, they go off in the car for 11 hours, and visit the factories. So that's what we quite often do, to be honest with you, just sort of kill two birds with one stone, as they say. But yeah, when you're planning that trip, it's just, I mean, I've often been on version 8 and 9 because suddenly you booked your inbound and your outbound flight, get that done, get that in, because the costs can go so extortionate. And then certain suppliers suddenly might turn around and go, "Oh, actually, I can't see you on Wednesday. Can you do Friday?" And then by the time you had in your itinerary on Friday, you're like 10 hours away from where they are, so you have to move everything around. And then, like you touched upon, it might be a national holiday suddenly crop up, which they have quite a lot of, and also. You're out there obviously over a couple of weeks, and you don't want to make anybody come and work on a Sunday, because it's just not really the best ethical practice to make a supplier come into a factory on a Sunday. So sometimes you're kicking about industrial China on a Sunday, and it's just how it all rolls, really. But it is a bit of a juggling act, and completely. I kind of felt like I could turn my hand to becoming a travel agent at that point.
Yeah. Transferable skills,
like itinerary planning.
Well, and also when, you'll start, quite a lot of this is where you've got suppliers you're already working with, you know where they are, you know what their setup is. But what about when you're sourcing new products? You're trying to work out how to go and visit them, and where are they geographically?
Yeah. I mean, everything's 2 hours away in China as well. Yeah, no, I agree. I think when I first took on a department, again, where there wasn't really much of a handover, and I needed to quickly swat up on product knowledge of this category and work out what regions in the world were the best regions to go for certain substrates. So where was the best place for glass, where was the best place for wood, where was the best place for textiles, and quite quickly work out what would be the best trip to go and find and source these suppliers, and what's the most efficient way to do it.
That geography A-level really comes into practice now,
doesn't it?
Really
comes in there.
A-level or GCSE, whatever it was.
That's why they do it, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, just a couple of touch points on that. I think I found it was really important to partner up with some key suppliers that had good knowledge of certain product categories and were sourcing directly from regions. That was my first point of call. And then getting out to the international trade fairs, so SPOGA, Christmas World, Ambiente, Maison, they often have halls where lots of Chinese factories and Indian factories and Vietnamese factories all go, and you can sort of start to work your way through that process, which can be quite daunting when you're wanting to go a bit more direct as a business. But definitely, I think getting out to those international trade fairs, if you can even go to the region. So India have some amazing international trade fairs, internal trade fairs, and Vietnam have them, China has Canton, Hong Kong Gift Fair, they have a great one in Shanghai. Like, it is definitely worthwhile when you're trying to work out where you're going with your supply base to get out to those.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's exhausting, isn't
Oh,
it?
it is. I'm exhausted just talking about it. I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I did all of that.
But it's so insightful, as you said. Like there's so much you can learn, and it's like really productive. And often, we are lucky to stay in nice places, as we've said, with your bottled water. And many fly business, some even first. But I've done it on premium and economy.
Yeah.
But and at the end of the day, you have to pack in a lot into that really tight schedule. Like you say, you've booked your outbound and you've booked your inbound, and you've got so much to cram in within that time. Like you're working really long hours. Like we've mentioned, you socialise in the evenings. Like there's no downtime. And like the socialising in the evenings is fun. Like we said, like you get to have some real cultural experiences. But it's also, as we said, from like a safety point of view too.
Yeah.
Like you're in a country you're not familiar with. The suppliers know it so well. Like they will make sure that you're well looked after and safe. But it can be really frustrating then when other departments like can see it as you're going on holiday.
Oh my gosh, the amount of times I've just wanted to slap someone around the face.
Yeah.
And with all the love in the world.
Absolutely not. I mean, like, I'll be the first to admit, I had a very lucky upgrade when staying to a suite when I was staying at the Langham. And that was because some building work was happening. But that was only for like a few hours before I was straight out of that country. Straight out of it. It was only for a few hours. That was only for a few hours before I was straight out of it and into China to a factory.
Yeah.
And so you can understand at like face value, right? But you are juggling your trip, all of your suppliers. You're trying to be on top form 100% of the time, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep.
Battling that jet lag.
Trying to be creative, which is hard with a lack of sleep and the jet lag.
Although sometimes I feel like I'm more creative.
That's when those samples come back that you're like... That is a key pivotal moment that summarises that. But you're also trying to manage your BAU from afar, like in a different time zone, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
So when you get back, you're just absolutely exhausted. Like you said, we just don't want to do another trip.
No, absolutely.
But you've got to download everything, haven't you? Like straight away. Like, in fact, if you can be doing it as you're going along, that would be great. But it is exhausting. If you can be keeping on top of the BAU, following up on all of your notes, sending things back to the team at home so that they can start like, this is what I found, this is what I want to put into place.
Yeah, I often do that.
And
because you just don't have much
things.
time. Yeah, exactly. So being a buyer, you obviously are travelling a lot, aren't you? It's quite a big part of the job, and I think it can be, there's so many opportunities to travel.
So many opportunities.
And it's just working out what's the right ones and how much time should you be away from the office, because you've still got to nurture that team and you can't always do that from afar.
You've still got your day-to-day, haven't you?
Still got your day-to-day. So I would say obviously having your two main trips a year, season, if you're on a seasonal department, and then getting out to a couple of trade fairs is probably what you should aim for. And if you can do anything more, great. But
that's a nice to do.
It's a lot. Yeah, that's a nice to do. It's a lot when you might have a team that need a bit more support. And also get them travelling too, as much as you can. Like my first break on a trip was because my buyer went on mat leave. If you can, and I was encouraging on my previous trip for my assistant to come out, and she's learned so much from it, and you can see they can support you so much, and they would really encourage businesses to invest in travel for their the more junior members of the team, because the buyer can't do it all forever, and it's actually quite a risk to just be like sending them all the time and not anyone else, so
like what if they do get long-term sick, or you don't have anybody that understands that department, understands the suppliers, has met anybody. It's good to get a few people on the trip, like if you can afford to.
I know, appreciate it.
It's a good investment.
It is a good investment, but you got to weigh it up. It is a lot of money, but definitely pays off.
I have to say, one of my last things that I just want to touch on is, because I remember this being really, really difficult, like what do you pack?
Oh God, trip wardrobe.
Yeah, because you need to think about the climate of where you're going. but also you need to dress smart because you are representing your business and it is a work day, so you need to be professional.
Yeah, you're not going to the beach.
But it is also about dressing for the weather. I mean, sometimes it can be really hot and muggy.
Yeah. But then you are in a lot of aircon as well, which I always find is another one you throw in there because you actually can get quite cold.
Quite chilly, yeah. And you also need to think culturally as well.
Yes, yeah.
And also health and safety. Like if you're going to a factory, sandals are
not the best choice.
No.
So layers is my advice. Lots of layers. I wear a lot of leggings with like a smartish top, and I tend to take like a lightweight blazer jacket because you can like mix and match with that, and then maybe some kind of like linen dress, linen trousers.
I was going to say breathable fabrics. Yeah, definitely, definitely.
That's probably...
A jumpsuit can be quite easy as well. Like it can look quite smart, just a cotton jumpsuit, linen jumpsuit.
A really nice white tee. I'm really into white tees at the moment, like really good fabric.
I think a pair of white pumps now are socially acceptable as looking fairly smart.
Okay.
Well, in my experience, I wouldn't mind putting I think they pass. I don't think you need... Because you don't want to wear a heel.
No,
you don't wear a sandal.
No. You climbing in and out of cars all the time.
Yeah, you could wear a ballet pump, but if I'm really honest, on a side note, I get cramp in my baby toe when I wear ballet pumps.
Do you?
Yeah. I'm trying to keep it on. Maybe, I don't know why.
Oh, because you're like clutching your foot.
Yeah, I think so, because they're quite low cut often, aren't they?
Yeah, that's true, trying to hold it on your foot.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
We digress.
Okay, well, we hope that you found that really insightful as a sort of whistle-stop tour into the world of travelling. We've had such a great jet-setting episode with some great stories. Sometimes you're so delirious and tired, you have to laugh or you'll cry. I think I've done both. At
the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. The 3 things we really want to highlight from today's episode are...
Number 1, it's not a holiday.
It's not. It really isn't, merchandisers.
It can be such an amazing experience with so much to take in, new cultures and new cuisines to try. But as we've said a few times, it will be exhausting. So be prepared. Take snacks, sleep aids, and just embrace it. You can sleep when you're home. Number 2, it's the epitome of work hard, play hard. You will be working closely with suppliers from early morning to late nights, often eating out in the evening, taking in a lot of information and juggling your BAU and team management back in the office from a different time zone. And number 3, think about your geographical efficiencies in order to plan your trip effectively. As we've said, you'll need to fit in as much as possible, so make it as easy as possible on yourself by making sure that your schedule flows well.
So next week, we're going to be talking about suppliers, including how to create a great supply base and why it's so important.
I'm excited.
I'm very excited.
See you then.
See you next week. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please, please, please like and subscribe and leave a review.
And if you already have, thank you, thank you, thank you. We all need a bit of retail therapy, and this is the perfect time for you to offload about that super cringeworthy story. We would love to hear from you all, your funny stories and experiences, or even any dilemmas, and maybe we can help or at least find someone who can. And don't worry, we will keep these anonymous and remove any names and brands.
We would also love to hear from you on any topics you would like us to talk about. Please send all of these into buyingandbeyond@gmail.com or drop us a DM via our Instagram page @buyingandbeyond. Kate, are you a drama queen?
No.
Drama just makes things interesting.
That's true.
All these thoughts and opinions are our own and based on our own experiences working for a wide variety of retailers. These are all in the hope to entertain and educate, and not to reflect negatively on any place we currently or have previously worked.